When it comes to Norwegian black metal, one of the most infamous scenes of the early to mid 90s, we know about the controversy and the core group of bands that started it all. Bands like Immortal, Enslaved, Emperor, and of course the most controversial of all, Burzum and Mayhem, brought Norwegian black metal to the forefront. But you likely already know all these bands. If you don't, I suggest you start there and familiarize yourself with all of those timeless classics, because I'll die on the hill with the opinion that they had one of the best black metal scenes we will ever see. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it is the be-all, end-all country for black metal. That claim was made by some of those bands themselves. They were kids at the time, and I get it. Countries like Sweden, Greece, and Brazil had scenes that were equally as important and influential. But that's a story for another day. Now, the real reason I'm here is to talk to you about just a few of the lesser-known black metal bands, the slightly more obscure. There were many to choose from, and I couldn't pick them all, and I'm not trying to go for ultimate obscurity necessarily. Maybe you know these albums, and maybe you don't. I was going to talk about bands like Hades and Mains, but those are just a little too well known for what I was going for. But for a bonus, just in case you haven't heard them, you absolutely must check out both albums from Hades, and if you like the more progressive approach that Enslaved took, you might like the two albums that they did under the name Hades Almighty. And also make sure you have heard the debut full-length album from Mains from 1999 for some of the best black metal to come out of Norway. Zyklon B were one of the many, dare I use the term, supergroups to come out of the 90s Norwegian black metal scene. I mean, it's not exactly a huge country, so it would make sense that a lot of these guys would form bands with each other out of other bands. Zyklon B were active from roughly 1994 to 1999, and they only recorded one EP in 1995 titled Blood Must Be Shed via the infamous German label Malicious Records. In 1996, there would be a tape release of the EP on a split with Sweden's Swordmaster with their classic 1995 EP Wraths of Time through Polish label Mystic Production. Zyklon B would feature Frost from Satyricon on drums, Samoth of Emperor on guitar and bass, Isan of Emperor on keyboards, and Aldron of Dodheim's Guard on vocals. This is considered to be 11 minutes of some of the best black metal ever to come out of Norway. Its fast and violent chaotic sound and the fact that it doesn't really sound like any of the members' main bands make it a timeless classic. I mean, maybe you can hear shades of early Emperor or Dodheim's Guard, but this stands alone as an original and important piece of early Norwegian black metal. Strid are one of the pioneers of the more depressive style of black metal. Forming in 1991 as Malfader, they changed their name to Strid in 1993 and were active until 2001. They reformed in 2009 until 2015, and apparently again in 2019. Despite that, they have not released any new material since 1994. Their first recording came in the form of a demo in 1993, but it would be the self-titled EP from 94 that made me a fan. If you like the depressive black metal that would come later, like Zasthor and Leviathan, this is something you must hear. Originally released by Malicious Records, it has been re-released by Greek label Kirk Productions and Armor as a compilation with all Strid and Malfader material. With its slow tempo and ominous atmosphere, added to the grainy production, giving it a sound as if it were being played in a rainstorm. This is an absolute masterpiece of depressive black metal. Fimbulwinter formed in 1992 by Skull, who would also be in bands like Arcturus, Ved Buenazende, and Ulver. Shagrath, mostly known for being in Dimmu Borgir, and a vocalist known as Necronos. They would record a demo in 92, and then their sole full-length album in 94, released through Shagrath's label called Hot Records. Servants of Sorcery is a prime example of pure early Norwegian black metal, clearly taking inspiration from early Celtic Frost, but sonically at times similar to early Immortal and early Gorgoroth. Basically, the songs bounce back and forth between icy, chaotic, fast tempos and slowed down, groovy Celtic Frost inspired bangers. There's even a cover of Morbid Tales on the album, and as with a lot of black metal, you can hear some punk in there as well. This is an album for the black metal purists. It was long out of print, but thanks to Peaceville Records just this year, it's available again on CD and vinyl. Get your copy quick though, because they won't likely be around long. After spending 2 years as Apoplexy, Malignant Eternal formed in 1994 and were active until 2001. Vocalist guitarist T. Reaper went on to play bass on the 1998 Obtained Enslavement album Soulblight and did the vocals for just one track on Gorgoroth's Destroyer album, also from 1998. Other than that, Malignant Eternal's members haven't done much in the scene, although apparently the band came back in 2017 going by M Eternal, but I don't know anything about that. After recording a 3-song promo in 1995, they released their debut full-length album Tarnet, also in 95 via Hot Records. This album was hard to find for many years, but in 2019 Dutch label Soul Cellar Records re-released it on CD and vinyl. And this is a pretty adventurous, well-written and well-played piece of symphonic black metal. If you're into stuff like Obtained Enslavement or early Dimmu Borgir, this should be well worth your time. Sort Vokter formed in 1994, being active until at least 96, but I'm not completely sure. It was a short-lived band with among their ranks the legendary Ildjarn and Nidhogg, as well as 2 other members. The band would only record one album, Folkloric Necro Metal, from 1996. Like a lot of things, it was out of press until 2005, which several represses have happened over the years, even again as recent as 2021. The 4 members all contributed vocals, guitar, and bass on different tracks with programmed drums. This approach gives the album a lot of variety, and there is a decent amount of keyboards as well, kind of giving some songs a bit of a symphonic feel. The production is very raw and cold, and adding in the drum machine I always thought gave it kind of a slight industrial feel. But don't let any of that scare you off. This is a total raw necro black metal album. Isvind formed in 1992 in Oslo, and for that alone, I'm not sure why they didn't make more of a splash in the black metal pond at the time. Maybe it's because their debut full-length Darkwater Stir didn't come out until 1996. It's not like they weren't busy, recording 3 demos and an EP before that. They had 2 members that either were or still are in Shooter, and I think that you can hear a little of that, and maybe some early Satyricon on Darkwater Stir. You aren't likely to find an original CD or vinyl pressing released by cult German label Solisticium Records, but Kirk Productions and Armor saves the day yet again with some awesome reissues. I'd also recommend checking out that label's demo compilation for Isvind, and they have 3 other full-length albums, but Darkwater Stir is definitely my favorite. Twin Obscenity formed in 1991 and were active until at least 2001 or so. Most of the members had not been in other bands prior to that, but a few had been in Gehenna and Black Lodge. After honing their skills with a string of demos between 93 and 95, they would release Where Light Touches None in 1997, an absolute masterpiece of melodic black metal through the untouchable Norwegian label Had Not Found. The band would go on to release 2 more albums through Century Media Records, but it's that 97 debut that I love the most. You can hear shades of the more Viking metal style that they would utilize on later albums, but they keep one foot firmly rooted in very well written melodic black metal. The songwriting is definitely varied, so if you prefer a less linear sounding album with songs that stand apart on their own, you need to hear this. Forlorn formed in 1992 by members that would go on to bands like Gehenna and 122 Stab Wounds, two bands that could have probably made it onto this video. They threw in the towel around 2004, but made a few things that I'm pretty fond of. I had a hard time deciding between the 1996 EP and the 1997 debut full-length, The Crystal Palace, both released by Head Not Found. I decided to go with The Crystal Palace since I've always loved it and have listened to it way more over the years. This album won't be everyone's cup of tea, not even among black metal fans, not even among Norwegian black metal fans. And I say that because this album is very melody driven, and it has that Viking metal thing going on, and that will turn away some of the purists. But fans of stuff like early Enslaved, Windeer, Moonsorrow, and even Storm, this is definitely for you. I've always thought this was a pretty classy sounding album with beautiful melodies. And there's a lot of great melodic guitar work, grandiose keyboard work, and tight songwriting. It's a black metal album at its core, but lots of additional layers. I've never seen this mentioned all that much, so check it out. Wallachia was formed in 1992 by Lars Stavdal. It was a solo project until 1995 when he started to recruit other members. In 96, Lars would record the first Wallachia demo with a second member contributing some rhythm guitar and keyboards. In 1999, he would record the debut full-length album From Behind the Light. I still consider this a solo album since Lars does pretty much everything here with the help of, two different drummers. I think this is a great piece of symphonic black metal that fans of Tartaros, Covenant, and Troll would be into. It would probably be more popular had it came out at least a few years earlier and was released by a better-known label. It was put out by Velvet Music International, a short-lived French label. For a symphonic black metal album, From Behind the Light is pretty unique. It is very atmosphere-driven and is not as over-the-top sounding as a band like Tartaros. The keyboards are prominent, but not super loud in the mix or in your face. The tempos are mostly mid-paced with occasional bursts of speed. There have since been 3 more albums, but I would recommend starting here and spending some time with this underrated masterpiece. In the late 90s, early 2000s, Norway saw a bit of a resurgence in their black metal scene. Most of the original bands had broken up or changed styles, and some new bands stepped forward to bring some of the glory of the early to mid-90s. Bands like Urgahall, Sarkom, Beastcraft, and one of my favorites, Coldbrawn. Forming in 2001, they would record 2 demos in 2002, and what I would call their best album, their debut full-length Necrotisk Inquisition, that's a hard one to pronounce, in 2003. The band self-released it on CD, but Desolate Landscapes would also press 1,000 copies of it that same year, helping it reach a bit of a wider audience. With a burning church on the cover as Gorgoroth and Burzum would do before them, Coldbrawn wasted no time in telling us what they were all about. This is raw and cold, violent, Norwegian-sounding, classic black metal. It pays homage to the past while looking forward and not at all being a carbon copy. This is one of the best examples from this wave of Norwegian black metal that holds its own even with the classic bands before them. Orkustis were, I suppose you could say, another supergroup, though I hesitate to use that term here. The band was formed in 2002 by Taipon of the band Amok, Dirge Rep, who had recently left Enslaved as he wasn't into the direction they were heading in, and he was also in Gehenna. And let's not forget Infernus and Tormentor of Gorgoroth. Orkustis were originally active until 2008 with a demo and 2 EPs before splitting up. But they would return later that year and record their sole and self-titled full-length album in 2009, released by the American label Southern Lord. I find the guitars are usually the first thing I notice, instantly bringing Gorgoroth to mind, and to me that is just fine, because overall I'm just reminded of some of the better albums of this era of Norwegian black metal. This album can sit with the best from Ergohol, 1349, and Toke in my book. The strange and terrifying entity known as Dodzangle formed in 2007 by members of bands like Nephilim and Saligia. In my opinion, they have been a cornerstone of Norwegian black metal ever since releasing a very good debut album in 2009. They would give us the 2010 masterpiece, Miriam Occultum, via the recently formed and now cult label Territor Possessions out of Trondheim. When I first saw the cover art for this album, which depicts some kind of an occult ritual drawn in black and gray, I knew I had to hear it. And what I heard was a strange and utterly horrifying journey that was not interested in being lumped in with the current Norwegian scene so much as transcend it entirely. I mean, sure, there are elements that will remind you of other things, but there are also 10 and almost 20-minute long songs here. If there was an heir to the throne of mayhem for the modern age, it very well could be Dodzangle. I am a massive fan of the band Mains, or should I say that I'm a massive fan of their 1999 masterpiece, Under ein Blodrad Main. And I almost included it in this video, but decided that it's just a little bit too well known. So instead I decided to go with Mani, a Mains spin-off band of sorts. To be honest, I've never been a fan of what Mains became. I only like their black metal stuff. In fact, I absolutely love it. So when Mains members Kernunus and Sargatanas formed Mani in 2011, I was instantly curious. I mean, Mains had not done anything black metal since 1999, and I had no idea what to expect here. When the debut came out in 2013 and I saw the logo and album cover and that Avant-Garde put it out, I was interested. And the album, well, it's really good. It does remind me at times of the debut Mains album, but it's not at all a carbon copy. It's cool to hear original Mains vocalist Sargatanas again. The gloomy, dreamy atmosphere works really well for me, along with the super icy, cold riffs. This album was pretty overlooked back in 2013, and I still don't know why. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I put a lot of work into it. And keep in mind, the theme was lesser known bands, not complete and utter obscurity. I enjoyed making this, and I hope some of you got something out of it. Cheers, guys.